Have you ever looked closely at a key? Its sharp ridges, the little metal teeth that fit perfectly into a lock. They seem so ordinary. Yet behind that tiny pattern lies thousands of years of human ingenuity, paranoia, and trust. Because the story of why keys have teeth is actually the story of how we learn to protect what is ours, from ancient temples to your apartment door. Let's rewind history to a time when locks didn't even exist. In the earliest human societies, there was no such thing as a private space. Caves and huts were communal. Safety came not from locks, but from people. It wasn't until humans started accumulating valuable goods, grain, jewelry, documents, that the idea of security took root. When there was something worth stealing, there suddenly needed to be something worth locking. The very first locks appeared over 4,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, specifically in Assyria and Babylon. They were made of wood and operated using simple pegs that could be lifted by a specially carved stick. Archaeologists have even found remnants of these ancient, wooden mechanisms in the ruins of Nineveh. These early keys were long and heavy, more like dowels than modern keys. They didn't have teeth yet, but they had one revolutionary idea. Only one shape could open the door. The Egyptians took this wooden concept and refined it. Around 2700 BCE, they created pin-tumbler locks. The same basic principle we still use today. Imagine this: a large wooden bolt securing a door, with holes drilled into it. Inside those holes were small wooden pins that dropped down into grooves, locking it shut. When someone inserted the right key, also made of wood, its protrusions pushed the pins upward to align perfectly, allowing the bolt to slide. Sound familiar? That's because your modern metal key works on the exact same principle. Those little teeth on your key, they push pins to just the right height so the lock cylinder can turn. But for the Egyptians, the key wasn't small or pocket. It was sometimes a foot long, and carried like a badge of authority. The person with the key wasn't just opening a lock. They were displaying status, power, and trust. Fast forward to ancient Rome. The Romans hated carrying around huge wooden sticks to unlock their doors, so they did what Romans did best. They engineered a sleeker, more practical version. They replaced wood with metal, made the mechanism smaller, and for the first time in history, created keys that could fit in a pocket. Wealthy Romans even wore them as rings, symbolizing both their riches and the things they kept under lock and key. But even these metal keys weren't quite the ones we know today. The teeth were still primitive, usually just notches or grooves. It wasn't until the Middle Ages that keys began to develop intricate patterns. During this time, locksmithing became both a science and an art form. Master blacksmiths hand-forged locks with unique internal wards, metal barriers that prevented the wrong key from turning. To bypass them, keys had to have matching cuts and teeth, leading to increasingly complex designs. These warded locks ruled Europe for centuries. They were used in castles, churches, and treasuries everywhere. Secrecy and safety mattered, but they also had a fatal flaw. Once a thief learned how the ward system worked, it was surprisingly easy to make a skeleton key, a universal key that could bypass many locks. Ironically, the same beauty that made medieval locks artistic also made them vulnerable. Then came the 18th and 19th centuries, the golden age of mechanical invention. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change how people worked, it changed how they protected what they worked for. In 1778, Robert Barron patented a new kind of lock called the double-acting lever lock. It required the key to lift levers to precise heights, too high or too low, and the lock wouldn't open. Suddenly, security became about precision, and that precision brought back the teeth. When English inventor Joseph Bramah introduced his safety lock in 1784, it was considered It used intricate internal mechanisms, and the key had delicate grooves, not unlike modern ones. Around the same time, Linus Yale Sr. and later his son, Linus Yale Jr., perfected the pin-tumbler design we still use today. The younger Yale, inspired by ancient Egyptian principles, made the design smaller, more reliable, and crucially easier to mass-produce. By the mid-1800s, the Yale Lock Company's keys had become iconic. Small, flat, and with carefully cut teeth that perfectly corresponded to the pins inside the lock cylinder. The bidding, those ridges and valleys, turned security into a science of precision metalwork. And yet, there's something psychological about it too. The feeling of holding a key, the cold metal weight, the click as it turns, taps into something deep in the human mind. Studies in environmental psychology suggest that the act of locking and unlocking provides a tangible sense of control and safety. It's a ritual that reassures us. This space is mine, and mine alone. Over time, the key evolved not just as a tool, but as a symbol. Keys have been metaphors for freedom, knowledge, and trust across cultures. In religious texts, keys often represented divine authority, St. Peter's keys to heaven, for instance. In literature, they unlock hidden worlds. Think of Alice in Wonderland or The Secret Garden. Every lock and key pair hints at mystery, something valuable, something forbidden. But as technology marched forward, the story of keys began to shift again. The 20th century brought magnetic cards, keypads, and eventually, smart locks. Digital access replaced physical teeth with lines of code, yet the metaphor remained: we still unlock our phones, unlock achievements, unlock knowledge online. Even in the digital age, the ancient idea persists that access should be earned by the one who holds the right key. Still, the old metal key refuses to disappear, maybe because it's so deeply woven into our sense of trust. A key can be handed over, lost, copied, or hidden. It feels real in a way that passwords never will. In fact, modern designers often mimic the look of key teeth in digital icons and interface buttons, because our brains are so trained to associate that jagged pattern with access and security. It's also a story of power. Think about how many metaphors center around keys. The key to success, key to happiness, key holder. Whoever holds the key holds control. In medieval Europe, the lady of the house often wore the household keys on her belt, a literal sign of authority over domestic resources. Today, that symbolism remains in subtle ways, from office keycards to encryption keys, guarding data on global networks. So next time you slide a key into a lock, remember, you're reenacting an ancient ritual of civilization, from Egyptian temples to Roman villas, from castle gates to apartment doors. Every tooth on your key carries echoes of a 4,000-year evolution. Those tiny metal ridges represent humanity's ongoing struggle between openness and protection, between freedom and fear. And as locks become digital, fingerprints replace teeth, and face recognition replaces keys entirely. Perhaps one day, people will look back and ask, why did our ancestors carry bits of jagged metal to feel safe? But until then, every click of a turning key remains a small, satisfying sound. The sound of trust, invention, and the human desire to keep what matters most safe.